Okay, histograms is just a fancy math word for graphs. It can include all kinds of graphs, circle graphs, bar graphs, line graphs. Today we're just going to be talking about box and whisker plots. So a box and whisker plot is going to be on a number line. So you have this number line, and it can start and end anywhere. Let's just say it starts at 5. So just go 5 to 14 just because that's the room I had. Now, you're not going to be required to make a histogram on the GED, but if we make one, it will help you understand where the numbers are coming from whenever you look at a histogram and they want you to interpret it. So first off, you've got to have some data to put on the histogram. Okay, so we're going to do 9 because that's the easiest example I can show you. So you've noticed that they're already in order. Now I could have given to you out of order and we would have just had to put them in order, so I'm trying to save time. So if you've had the lesson on mean, median, mode, and range, you're going to know some of these terms. We're going to use 2 today, which is median and range. So first off, you've got your smallest number. So your smallest number is called your minimum. It's just the smallest number. Now the common mistake people make is they look at the line graph and they just look at the smallest number here. When it says what's the minimum, they look over here and they go, well, the minimum is 5 and the maximum is 14. But that's just the numbers on the number line. These arrows mean this goes on infinitely. So actually every number is on the number line. What your minimum is your lowest number in your data set. And that makes this your maximum. So if they ask for minimum and maximum, it's just your smallest number and your largest number. That's it. No math involved. You just have to put them in order first. So if they ask for the median, if you've ever taken my class, an easy way to remember median is when you're driving down the road, the median is the part in between the roads. So it's the middle of the road. So it's the same thing in math. It's the middle number. So if you counted your numbers, you'd see that there are 9 numbers, which means you come over 4 from each side. Now, if you want, you can start marking numbers off lightly, or you can check mark, whatever you want to do. So if you mark 1 on each side, that leaves you with 1 middle number. So the median for this data set is 10. So we're going to start by graphing those 3 numbers. So on your number line, you would put a straight line on 6 because that's your minimum. You would put a straight line on 12 because that's your maximum. You also put a straight line on 10 because that's your median. Now you'll also hear people call this Q2. It's the same thing. Q stands for quartile. Now with a box and whisker, which is different than most other charts that you're going to deal with, they actually give you 2 other medians. So they want the median for this data set and then they want the median for this data set, the left and the right. So you notice I drew a line through the 10. That's because it's used for both sides, because it is the middle number. So in between 6 and 10, you've got 5 numbers. So if you start marking off numbers on each side, you end up with 8. That is called your first quartile. And you need to come down here and draw a line at 8. Do the same thing for the other side. So 10, 12, 10, 12. So 11 is called your Q3. So on your line, you need another line at 11. Try to draw them the same length. Now we're going to draw our boxes and our whiskers, and that's why they call this a box and whisker plot. So from your median, which is your 10, you're going to draw your right box, and then you're going to draw your left box. So there's your two boxes. Then in between your Q3 and your maximum, you're going to draw it in between, and that gives you your whisker, and then you do the same thing on the other side. So now you know when you're given this on a GED or on a tape test that the middle line represents your median, the top line represents your maximum, and the bottom line represents your minimum. Those are the three important things that you need to know from this. Q1 and Q3, I don't think I've ever seen that asked on a GED. It's possible, but probably not likely. What you need to know is how to interpret this. So you'll notice that this box is a lot bigger than this box. And this whisker is a lot bigger than this whisker. So we would call this skewed, okay? Skewed means it's heavy to one side. So if you look from here to here, it's got quite a bit of range. From here to here, it's very short. So this would be skewed left, just slightly. You can have some that are skewed a lot more. So I'm going to draw some examples of that. So this one is skewed left. If you had one that was like this, then that one would be skewed right. And then if you have one that's like this, you can see everything looks pretty much the same. And it doesn't have to be perfect, just as long as it's close. This is symmetrical. And the worksheet we're going to do today is going to ask you about that. So there's something that happens with this. The way these are divided, you're dividing the numbers evenly. So the median divides the numbers in half. So half the numbers are up here, and half the numbers are down here. Then when you do your Q1 and your Q3, you're dividing your half in half again. So half of a half is actually a quarter. Another way to look at it is 25%. Same thing on this side. So when you have your minimum, your Q1, your median, your Q3, and your maximum, you divided these numbers into quarters. So from here to here is 25% of your numbers. From here to here is 25%. From here to here is 25%. And from here to here is 25%. So what you see from this is that there's more numbers in this area and this area than there are in this area and this area. That's why it's skewed to the left. More range is what I should have said of numbers. There's actually the same number of numbers. There's 3, 3, 3, and 3. So we're just going to jump right into the worksheet. So if you print this worksheet off, this actually doesn't have any answers. So I'm going to try to go through as much of it as I can. This is a re-explanation of everything that I've told you. So you can read through that when you've got time. You can go down to the first example. So here's their data range. It's much bigger than ours. So A says order the data from least to greatest. That's what you have to do first. So you can start marking numbers off. So you've got a 1. We don't have any 2s. We've actually got 4 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to put all those down. Then I don't think there's a 4. There's a 5. There's a 6. There's no 7. There's an 8 and another 8. There is a 9. Oh, I just made a mistake. Big one. I skipped 0. Sorry. If you want, you can pause your video and catch up with me. That's what it's supposed to look like. We've got a 10, 10, 12, 13, 13, 16, 18, 19. Oh, forgot this 14. It's too much data to look at. So I was at 19, 23, 24, 32, 45. Okay, that's all of our data. So I can already tell you that this is going to be skewed just by looking at these numbers. So let me show you what I mean by that. From 0 to 3, there's only 2 numbers in between 0 and 3. And there's only 5 numbers in between 0 and 5. So if you go all the way over to what's going to be the middle, from 0 to 10, that's only 10 numbers. Now if you do the same thing and go this way, from 10 to 45, that's 35 numbers. That's more than 3 times, that's 3.5 times more than from here to here. So our chart is going to be way skewed to the right. So if you look at this, it wants B wants these 5 numbers. So minimum is easy, 0. Maximum is easy, 45. Now you have to start marking numbers off. So 1 on here, 1 over here. Now if you want to do this a different way and just count, because there's 24 numbers, you just want to count 12 and 13 numbers in. But if you don't know how to do that correctly, this is your best method. So we have 2 middle numbers. That happens when there's an even number. So the example that I gave you only had 9, which is an odd number, so you're going to have a center number. 24 is even, so you're going to have 2 middle numbers. Now normally we would take these 2 middle numbers, we would add them together and divide by 2. Since they're both the same, that's not going to get us anywhere because it's just going to end up being 10 again. But you would add them, 20 divided by 2, which would be 10. Now for the next ones, I think we are going to have to do that both times. So now the Q1 goes in between this 10, since that's the middle, this 10, and this 0. So again, you can do this. 0, 10, 1, 9, till you get to the 2 middle numbers. And it's going to be 2 again because 10 is an even number. So this time it's 3 and 5. Now, if you look at this, you'll figure out that you can do this an easier way, which is what's in between 3 and 5? Well, 4. But if you just want to see how that works, add them together, divide by 2, you get 4. So Q1 is 4. Same thing on this side, or each one. And you end up with 16 and 18. Same thing. What's in between 16 and 18? 17. But if you add them together, you get 34. You divide by 2, you get 17. Now, they've already done the whole chart for you. You actually don't have to make one. You can see your minimum is 0. They actually use the dot, but sometimes you'll see lines there. Your maximum is 45. Your median is 10. your Q3 is 17, and your Q1 is 4. Now it says, explain how the box and whisker plot shown represents the data. Well, you got to go to the second page to look at how to answer that. Skewed left, symmetrical, skewed right. That's what we went over in our notes. So this one should be blatantly obvious because this line goes way over here like that because of what I said. There's 35 numbers from there to there. There's only 10 from there to there. So this one is obviously skewed right. Remember, you count the side that the gap is, not where the boxes are. Okay, so that's all the questions for that. So in exercise 1 and 2, make a box and whisker plot that represents the data. So this is going to be 9 numbers again. First thing you always got to do is put them in order. 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 8, 8, 9. Draw you a number line. You can start at 4. You don't have to start at 3. Okay, so it goes from 4 to 3. Our minimum is 4. Our maximum is 9. Start marking off numbers for the middle number. 4, 9, 5, 8, 6, 8, 6, 8. So 7 is our middle number. It's our median. Now in between this number and that number, you mark off 2 and you'd end up with 6. Same thing on this side. There's only 3 8s in the middle, so you don't even have to mark off 8. Make your boxes. Make your whiskers. Now this one is technically skewed a tiny bit to the left, but it's almost symmetrical. All right, so they've got a box and whisker chart drawn out for us. Find and interpret the range of the data. So we haven't talked about this range. To find the range, you take the largest number and you subtract the smallest. So 24.4 is the largest, 5 I mean. Subtract the smallest, 8.5, 0, and then that's going to be 16, and you will have a calculator for these. So the range is just 16. Okay, describe the distribution of the data. Well, this line is a little bit more than that one, so we could say skewed right. Explain the interquartile range of the data. It's pretty symmetrical. So that box is about the same size as that box. Looks like that might be just a hair longer. We could actually do the math. That is 4.5. That is like 5.5. So that is one more number. But it's basically symmetrical. So are they spread out below Q3 or above below Q1 or above Q3 more? Well, we just said they're spread out more here than they are here. So the answer is Q3. Now this is actually comparing two charts. So I want you to pause your video and answer A, B, and C. So identify the shape of each distribution. This one looks symmetrical. So A is symmetrical. B is obviously skewed to the right. Which state's number of tornadoes are more spread out? So they're talking about the distance, the range. So that's a range question. They just don't use the word range. You have to interpret that. So obviously it's state B. Which state had the single least number of tornadoes in a month during the year? So that's where you go to your minimums So A's minimum was 0, B's minimum was 4. So A had the least number in a month, which was 0. So this is going to give you some chance to make some box and whisker plots. So they want you to identify Q1, Q2, Q3, and then the greatest value and the least value. So you're just going to put those in order and practice that. Same thing here. And actually, I didn't realize that your answers right here, if you want to cover those up while you work these, then after you get all of them worked, you can look at your answers over there. This is going to be some of the same types of questions. We're not going to go over all these though, because at the end of this 3-page packet, you've got your answers that are right there. So that is the end of video on box and whisker plots.